بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الدكتور عمر عبد الخالق البناي، مدير عام مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع. الدكتور كمال مصطفى رويبح من جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم العلي الصباح المعلوماتية. الحضور الكريم، نرحب بحضراتكم أيها السادة والسيدات في حفلنا الكريم. ويتشرف مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع أحد مراكز مؤسسة الكويت للتقدم العلمي، والذي أنشئ بمبادرة سامية من صاحب السمو أمير البلاد الشيخ صباح الأحمد الجابر الصباح حفظه الله. نتشرف بحضوركم وتشريفكم لندوة من فكرة إلى واقع، ولقاء السيد لستيفن ساسون مخترع الكاميرا الرقمية الثابتة والحاصل على الميدالية الوطنية للتكنولوجيا والابتكار، ووسام المعلوماتية من جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم العلي الصباح للمعلوماتية. وأنها لساعة مباركة ينبغي أن تكتب في صفحات التاريخ بحروف من نور، أن نشهد تلك اللحظة التي نرى فيها إنجازا مهما وقصة نجاح لأحد أهم الاختراعات التي تحولت من مجرد تجربة علمية إلى واقع عملي يفيد الإنسانية ويخدمها، ورفعوا بها اسم بلدهم عاليا في كل المحافل، حيث أن يقاس تقدم الدول بعقول أبنائها واختراعاتهم. لذلك فنحن نعده إنجازا علميا بالغ الأهمية، ولا يقل براعة عن الإنجازات الكبرى التي غيرت حياة الإنسانية. والآن كلمة مع الدكتور عمر عبد الخالق البناي، مدير عام مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع، فليتفضل.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are very pleased tonight to host Mr. Stephen. I'm thinking of speaking Arabic or English, so I'm trying to. باسم مؤسسة الكويت للتقدم العلمي نتشرف باستضافة السيد ستيفن، وأحب أمانة أن أشكر جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم العلي لاهتمامهم في هذه المواضيع التي تخص مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع، أحد مراكز مؤسسة الكويت للتقدم العلمي، والذي بدوره يعتني بالموهوبين والمبتكرين والمخترعين. فأنا سعيد جدا اليوم باستضافة السيد ستيفن، أحد مخترعين العالم الذي أضاف إضافة، وهو راح يكون نموذج لكل مخترع وغير مخترع، بحيث أن راح نسمع اليوم إن شاء الله. عندي أنا أكثر من سؤال to Mr. Stephen. I would like to know tonight from you personally, when did you discover or invented this camera or the process of the camera? What were the obstacles that you faced? ما هي العوائق والمشاكل that you faced in order to come up with this idea? Did you patent this idea? Plus, what are again the obstacles to commercial such idea when you came up with? This is one of our major obstacle, the commercialization. The last question I'm hesitating to ask you, Mr. Stephen, is how much did you make from that? I'm just kidding, no. So we are again very pleased to host you today, and I hope this starting point, it will be a long-lasting relationship, and you are a model to our inventors and our people in Kuwait. We are very proud to host you tonight. I would like to, since you have a translator, let me speak in Arabic. مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع أنشئ في سنة 2010 مايو 2010. ما في translation. 2010 shall I speak in okay. صباح الأحمد Center established 2010, in May 2010. The major goals of Sabah Al-Ahmed Center is to take care and host and adopt the inventors and the gifted and talented people. So in a short way, let me explain what is the major goals of Sabah Al-Ahmed Center. We have two wings, I would call it. Wing concentrate on adopting and helping the inventors from A to Z. For example, we have 3 stage gates: the documentation, how the inventors apply to get the help and support. Stage gate 2, till he gets the patent certificate. Stage gate 2, if we approve, we do the evaluation. If we approve that the idea is really commercial and promising, we go to the stage gate 2 after he granted the certificate, patent certificate. So we do the prototyping. We have 3 kinds of prototyping. The first prototype we call the inventor prototype. Then after the second prototype, after the testing, then the manufacturing prototype. After that, we go to the stage gate 3, the commercialization. We have a couple of inventions now, hopefully, as I promised. Before we have 2 weeks left for the end of this year. But before the end of this year, inshallah, we will see at least 3 to 5 inventions in the market. One of them already gone. It will be launched hopefully before the end of the year at the Amazon.com. So everybody in the world, we will order that if it's accessible. So there are a couple of inventions. We have over 600, I would call them projects, already filed in the patent offices worldwide, in the United States, Europe, and GCC country, as well as some of them at the WIPO. The WIPO is the World Intellectual Property Organization under the umbrella of the United Nations. So this is the first wing that the center is taking care of. The other wing is discovering the gifted and talented people. We have a good example behind us. We are also very proud of them. They were, by the way, the best student in Kuwait in terms of marking, and they got a great grades. So I would like to clap to them. They are here today with us. Those are the gifted and talented. We discover them in early ages. So then they go with the cooperation with the Ministry of Education till the end of their graduation. And after the high school, they go to the highest level of the universities in the world. Usually, we categorize them, I don't want to mention names, but 20 universities around the world where KFAS is most of them member of the board of directors in those universities. So those, our kids here, hopefully in the future, we will not let you go. You are our future leaders for Kuwait, inshallah, in the science, in terms of science and technology. This is the gifted wing, I would call it. Plus, we have after-school activities. After-school activities, and I would like, if you have some time, Mr. Stephen and the gentleman from جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم plus الإخوان والأخوات الكرام ضيوفنا تشرفونا بالورشة في مركز شباب القادسية. Just a visit. يعني شوفوا، عطونا اقتراحاتكم، ما نستغني أمانة عن هذه الاقتراحات، فتشرفونا بمركز شباب القادسية. Those are after school activities we have, such as Smart Brain. We have a Fab Lab recognized worldwide, the second country in the Middle East, by the way. We were recognized after Egypt. We have a Fab Lab. There is a committee from MIT. They categorize us as a second country in the Middle East. We granted the Fab Lab certificate. Plus, we have a robotic. We have a Smart Brain, we call it, program. We have a math club we established, by the way, in 30 schools with the cooperation with our great partner, I call them Ministry of Education, by the way. We enter 30 schools, we train the faculty members, and we train the trainers as well. We have thousands of kids now. They are enrolling in those programs where the applied math, I would call it. Plus, we have entered also another 30 schools, and we have 60 schools the total, where we enter the robotic plus programming, open source. So those are mainly the major programs that Sabah Al-Ahmed Center for Gifted and Talented concentrating on. We also participate in a couple of inventions firms with the help and cooperation also with Science Club. We, inshallah, next year also we will commence again, because we stopped that. We would like to participate in the world in the specialized invention fairs around the world. But we have 5 major invention fairs in Seoul, Korea, and the other in Pittsburgh, one in Germany, Geneva one, and we have in Kuwait as well. The 5th is in China. Again, I would like to thank Mr. Stephen to come to KFAS and SAC GC place. We are so proud to host you tonight again, and thank you very much.
والآن فليتفضل الدكتور كمال مصطفى رويبح من جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم العلي صباح المعلوماتية.
السلام عليكم، مساكم الله بالخير والبركات. أنا سعيد أن أكون في صرح من صروح الكويت والعالم العربي، مؤسسة التقدم العلمي تدعم مخترعي العرب، تدعم العلم والعلماء، تكرم العلماء من العالم العربي بأسره، تدعم المؤتمر أو اللقاء السنوي للمخترعين هنا في العالم العربي. أنا اليوم أمثل جائزة سالم العلي للمعلوماتية، وأنا أمثل منسق الوسام المعلوماتي، وهو أعلى جائزة أو أعلى وسام تمثله الجائزة. نبدأ تاريخية. الجائزة تأسست سنة 2001، والهدف من هذه الجائزة هو دعم المحتوى العربي بالإنترنت. كما لا يخفى عليكم أن وجود العربي أو المحتوى العربي بالإنترنت ضعيف جدا. فعدد سكان الكرة الأرضية حاليا بلغ حوالي 7.2 مليار بشري على الكرة الأرضية، منهم حوالي 3 ملايير مشتركين بالإنترنت. المحتوى العربي ضعيف جدا. قامت الجائزة على أساس تشجيع ودعم هذا المحتوى من خلال مسابقة سنوية تعقد ويكرم فيها أحسن المواقع العربية زائد المدونات العربية. وبداية من السنة الماضية تم استحداث نسخة جديدة، وهي اختيار أحسن التطبيقات الذكية. في سنة 2007 لجنة الأمناء على مستوى الجائزة قررت استحداث ما يسمى الوسام الذهبي أو الوسام المعلوماتي كما قلت، وهو أعلى وسام يقدم لمن؟ إما لشخص أو لمنظمة قامت بإسهامات بارزة في مجال المجتمع المعلوماتي أو ساهمت في تقدم البشرية. في سنة 2007 تم تكريم رئيس الوزراء السابق أحمد نظيف نظرا للمشروعات المعلوماتية التي ساهم بها في مصر. وبعد ذلك في سنة 2008 تم تكريم المكتبة الإسكندرية، وهي مكتبة غنية وتحتوي على المحتوى الرقمي العربي، وهي مشهورة ودعوة لكل من يستمع إلي أن يطلع على موقع المكتبة ويستفيد من المحتوى الموجود فيها. في سنة 2009 تم اختيار مؤسسة أرابسات، وهي المؤسسة العربية للاتصالات الفضائية، وكلنا يعلم أن معظم القنوات الفضائية تبث على هذه المنظمة. في سنة 2010 تم تكريم مدينة الملك عبد العزيز للعلوم والتكنولوجيا، وهي جامعة رائدة في العالم العربي ويقصدها أغلب المخترعين وأكبر الأساتذة في العالم. في سنة 2011 تم تكريم منظمة ايكان، وهي المنظمة التي تعطي النطاقات والدومين نيمز اللي هي .com .org .net. في سنة 2012 تم إعطاء الوسام المعلوماتي لمخترع النظام الملاحة العالمية الGPS. ولا يخفى عليكم أن هذا النظام له تطبيقات في حياتنا اليومية، فهو الذي ينظم حركة البواخر وحركة الطائرات وحركة القطارات، وحتى احنا أصبحنا لا نستغني عن نظام الGPS. في سنة 2013 تم اختيار منظمة آيزو، وهي منظمة غير ربحية تهدف إلى دعم مشاريع الإنترنت ودورها في تنمية الدول. والسنة هذه يكون الشرف لنا أن نكرم ستيفن ساسون على اختراعه للكاميرا الرقمية. الوسام الذهبي، الوسام المعلوماتي، يركز دائما في اختياره للفائزين على بعض المعايير، منها مثلا الإبداع الفكري، المساهمة في تطوير وفي تقدم المجتمعات، الأصالة في الأفكار. خلوني أرجع معكم إلى سنة 1975. كلنا يعلم الكبار أننا كنا نعتمد في أخذ الصور على كاميرا قديمة تعتمد على الفيلم. كان الشخص يأخذ صورة ثم ينطر ويقوم باستخراج الصور حتى يطلع على الصورة. ستيفن هو خريج سنة 1971 من معهد البوليتكنيك وهو حامل شهادة البكالوريوس. في سنة 1973 تحصل على شهادة الماستر، ثم التحق بشركة كوداك. ومن لا يعرف شركة كوداك فهي تعتبر رمز التطور الأمريكي. تأسست سنة 1885 وبقيت الشركة موجودة أكثر من 100 سنة، إلى أن اختفت الشركة وأفلست في 2012. تصوروا معي لو رجعنا إلى الوراء، لما التحق ستيفن بمختبر الأبحاث في شركة كوداك، طلب منه تطوير مشروع وهو الكاميرا الرقمية، والذي اشتغل عليه لمدة سنة وأطلق عليه اسم Charge Couple Device for Child. اشتغل لمدة معينة، وكان يقول في أحد تصريحاته: كنت أعلم أن الثورة كانت على وشك أن تحدث، يعني الانتقال من الفيلم البلاستيكي إلى الصورة الرقمية. لم أكن أعرف متى سيحدث ذلك، وأنا لم أكن أعرف مدى فعالية هذا الاختراع، لأن 1975 الإنترنت لم يكن موجود، الكمبيوتر الحاسوب لم يكن معروف على مستوى العالم، فلم يكن يدري ماذا الأثر الذي يحدثه الاختراع. والمحصلة النهائية كما يقول أن الاختراع قام بتقويض نموذج الأعمال الأساسي لشركة كوداك. شركة كوداك كان لها نموذجين: النموذج الجديد اللي هو الكاميرا الرقمية، والنموذج القديم اللي هو يعتمد على الفيلم البلاستيك. المهم ماذا حدث؟ أن ستيفن قام بتسجيل براءة الاختراع في سنة 1978 تحت رقم معين، وتم تكريمه سنة 2009 من طرف الرئيس الأمريكي جورج أوباما. ويكون لنا الشرف نحن في الكويت أن نقوم بتكريمه مرة أخرى، وسيكون التكريم غدا إن شاء الله في قصر بيان بحضور سمو الأمير. دعوني أرجع إلى أثر هذا الاختراع. ما أدري هل تعرفون أو لا تعرفون شخص وصحفي أمريكي مشهور اسمه توماس فريدمان. قال وأسس وألف كتاب، كتب هذا الكتاب اسمه The World is Flat، الكرة الأرضية مسطحة. وكلكم تدرون أن نيوتن أثبت أن أن الأرض كروية الشكل. في 2009 يقول توماس فيردمان أن الأرض مسطحة. ماذا يقصد؟ الآن صورة تؤخذ، ممكن أي شخص مشترك بالإنترنت يطلع عليها. للدلالة على أثر هذه الصورة والتأثيرات التي أحدثتها في العالم، دعوني أنقل لكم بعض الإحصائيات التي تتحدث عن ماذا هذا الأثر الذي تم عن طريق تحويل الصورة من صورة إلى صورة رقمية. ماذا يحدث في العالم في 60 ثانية؟ بالنسبة لليوتيوب، عندي أمامي 72 ساعة من الأفلام يتم تحميلها في الثانية على موقع اليوتيوب. سكايب 1.4 مليون مكالمة تتم في الثانية الواحدة. تويتر 278 ألف تغريدة في الثانية. سناب شات، مجموعة كبيرة من الشباب والأولاد يستخدمون سناب شات، 104 ألف صورة تؤخذ في الثانية. بالنسبة لجوجل وعدة أشياء، كل هذا الكلام يدل على أن الآن الصور أصبحت هي الناقل للأفكار. عندنا العديد الآن من طلبة الجامعة لا يكتبون، المحاضرة تؤخذ بالصورة، كتاب أو معلومة نطلع عليه ننقلها مباشر، وفي نفس اللحظة توزع على ملايين أو ملايير البشر في نفس اللحظة. أمام الكبار وأمام ستيفن ساسون لا أريد أن أطيل في النقاش، هي دعوة للشباب، دعوة لكم للمشاركة في مسابقة سالم والعلي للمعلوماتية. تذكروا أن سنويا عندنا مسابقة لأحسن المواقع الإلكترونية، أحسن التطبيقات الذكية، وتختلف من سنة إلى سنة موضوع المسابقة. كما أنها دعوة للشباب هنا في هذا المركز أن يحتكوا بستيفن. في الفكرة ظهرت في سنة 1975، تم توثيقها رسميا عن طريق براءة اختراع سنة 78، ثم تحققت العديد من النتائج. لا يسعني في الأخير إلا أن أشكر فريق الذي اشتغل معي، المهندس حسن، الأستاذة مها، فاطمة، جميلة. عندي مجموعة اشتغلت معي ليل ونهار وتعبت من أجل أن يكون هذا الحدث في النهاية ختامها مسك. وشكرا للدكتور عمر البناي على استضافتنا وللضيوف الكرام، وأترك الفرصة لستيفن حتى يكون هو ختم الكلام. شكرا جزيلا دكتور.
وكلمة مع ضيفنا الكريم السيد لستيفن ساسون، مخترع الكاميرا الرقمية الثابتة، فليتفضل.
Thank you for having us. Both my wife and I are very honored to be in this fascinating and progressive school. I'm most impressed with the charter of the school that you outlined. And in thinking about what I'd say, you provided a good blueprint. You described invention, commercialization, and you even talked about patents. And you've described my life at Kodak exactly. I've spent approximately 15 years in what I would call the inventing phase, in advanced development. I spent another 15 years in commercialization, and I spent maybe the last 5 years or so in intellectual property. So I can share a little bit of personal experience about all three. And I have to say that I'm impressed that you've put them all together, because they do go together. Let me talk about inventing. I had a great opportunity to go and be allowed to pursue my passion and my interest in the early phases of my career. I invented the digital camera in 1975. I took my first pictures in 1975, and I took pictures and showed them to the Kodak management throughout the year of 1976. My dream was simple. As most dreams start out, they start out very simple. It was to be able to take a picture without using photographic film and to display it without using any paper. I also had another dream that I would have a camera with no moving parts at all. And that was the dream. And I tried to demonstrate it through a model, what you call a prototype. And indeed, that prototype, I kept the prototype of the camera all these years, not because I thought it would be of interest to anyone, but inventors get personally involved with their prototypes. And it was such a good memory for me that I kept it. And now the Eastman Kodak Company still owns it, of course, but it's sought after by universities and museums all over the world to show. And I find it very odd, because when I built my prototype, I didn't think anybody would be interested. And if I had thought they would be interested, I would have made it much prettier. But inventing is about pursuing your passions and trying to make the world look a little bit like your dream. And so when I speak to the inventors in the audience, and especially the young people, most inventions start off with a dream, and they are fueled by your curiosity. And so I encourage you to foster and feed your curiosity by pursuing your passions and interests. And I say this to the young people because, as you all know, the curiosity of youth sometimes transfers over to the caution of older age. And sometimes you take on positions and reputations, and they become actually burdens. And a reputation sometimes can weigh you down. And so to the young people, go after your dreams and feed your curiosity. And now I talk about the second part, which doesn't get talked about that much for some reason. But commercialization is very important. Remember, an invention without execution is just a dream. And if you want to see it turn into reality, you have to do the hard work of convincing those around you that your idea is worthy of investment, and you have to prove that it has a viable ability to solve a problem or to meet a need. And that's what commercialization is about. And you rightfully spoke about the phases of commercialization and your levels of prototype. My first prototype would have been your level 1 prototype. And then you build an engineering prototype, and then you build manufacturable, what we call manufacturing models. And those are all important steps into refining your idea into a practical reality and making it available to the world. It's hard work. I never had a harder job than in the commercialization of products. I commercialized a number of products, some of which you probably have used. And I found it to be very, very difficult. But it's really satisfying. I built a printer one time, if I can share one personal story, because I don't get to share this story very often. But inside a corporation, as you might expect, you get a lot of people who aren't, that say no a lot. Organizations tend to have built-in no factories. I don't know why, and I was building a thermal printer. You may have seen it. It's a type of device that makes pictures, beautiful pictures, using a dye sublimation process. And we had just built this printer, and I had received a lot of resistance inside of the company. And I was commercializing it, and it took me 2.5 years of very difficult work to pull together this commercialized product that we started to sell. And every day you had to deal with problems. Problems of performance, problems of consistency, problems of cost and schedule. And it weighs you down sometimes. And we had launched our product, and then I went out to a show. It was in Las Vegas, the Consumer Electronics Show. It was a very big show in the United States and around the world. And I walked around the show, and I saw my printer. And I shouldn't say my printer, it was really Kodak's printer, but I felt like it was mine. And it was being used in all kinds of booths all around the Consumer Electronics Show. It's an enormous show, building after building. And I would see my printer being used by companies I had never heard of. And I took off my badge to hide that I was from Kodak. And I asked them how they liked the printer. And they loved the printer. And they talked about it in glowing terms and how it solved so many problems for them. And it was so easy to use and the pictures were so beautiful. And it lifted me up in a way that I can't describe to you adequately. But it demonstrated to me that sometimes with all the negative and the battles that you have to fight to bring your idea into reality, when you see it being used, it's worth it. Believe me, it's worth it. To see people using your idea after working so hard on it. I went back to Kodak and the team that worked on it. It was a big team. I gathered them together and I said, guess what? Our work is being recognized. You won't hear it at Kodak, but you'll hear it in the rest of the world. And soon you will hear it at Kodak. And indeed it did. In fact, that printer became the basis for an enormously profitable business for the Eastman Kodak Company called thermal printing kiosks, where people would walk around and put in their memory cards and make prints, beautiful prints. And today they have over 100,000 of them around the world. And so I applaud you for emphasizing commercialization. And I think it is very important to consider that as part of the process. Now let me spend just a few minutes on intellectual property, because I filed many patents in my life. I have 10 US granted patents. The challenge for intellectual property, of course, is that it's a process that seems foreign when you first start dealing with it. Remember, a patent in the United States, it's the only legal monopoly there is. And it's around intellectual property. It's about the ownership right of intellectual ideas. And it's a very important concept, and it's supported strongly throughout the United States and the world. I was involved with several patent litigations involving Eastman Kodak Company and many other companies that were involved with digital photography that Eastman Kodak Company was involved with litigation. I don't want to go into the names, but you know them all. And I learned a lot about intellectual property through that, working with intellectual property lawyers and working with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and with the Trade Commission in the United States. In fact, I ended up testifying in several Trade Commission cases in Washington, D.C., which is a whole nother experience I won't go into here. But I think the thing to remember is that patents are important, and they're not as complicated as they may first seem. A few weeks ago, I was with Michelle Lee. I was speaking with her at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Arlington, Virginia. And she was telling me that one of the challenges faced by the U.S. Patent Office is getting more young people to apply for patents. So they're trying to desperately make it clear that they want to have help and support for young people to apply for and get patents, whether it be provisional patents or actually filing for patents. And so they're making a bunch of educational tools, and they're putting together teams to go around and talk about patents at schools and universities, because they want to make it seem like less of a challenge. And so I think you'll find that in other parts of the world as well. And so I urge you to put down your ideas in a patent, because it, first of all, forces you to crystallize what your idea really is. You know, the patent for the first digital camera was my first patent, and I applied for it in 1977. It was granted in 1978. And when I worked with my patent lawyer, I was most frustrated with him because he was trying to get me to just keep whittling this down to the basic concept. And I wanted to talk about all the options and ideas. He says, what's the basic concept? And so the concept simply was to capture an image electronically and put it into one memory very quickly, and then to read it out of that memory at a slower rate to a more permanent form of memory. And that was the basis for the fundamental claim 1 of the 919 patent, which was the first digital camera patent ever issued. And it taught me that process forces you to crystallize your thoughts. And you working with patent lawyers sometimes can be frustrating, and they certainly think differently than inventors do, but thankfully so, because they do crystallize and make the ideas very concrete. And so I urge you to do that just for the experience, even if you don't get a patent, because I think it's a good one. So I don't want to go talk too much. Inventors should not be talking. They should be listening. And so I would like to hear more about your school and more about your inventions. I'm fascinated to see your inventions. And I just want to end my remarks by again thanking you for inviting me to this wonderful and interesting organization. And I'm honored to be here among you this evening. Thank you very much.
والآن فتح باب المناقشة ليتعرف الحضور على المخترع من خلال الأسئلة، فليتفضلوا.
السلام عليكم. My name is Dr. Ghanem Al-Hujaylan. I'd like to have my question in English if I can. Is it okay? Okay. Sir, I'm very honored to be with an inventor who's well known, and it is a philosophical question. Is it a dream or it's a need that we are trying to gain here as an inventors? Is it a dream that I want to do something, or it's a need?
That's a good question. Can you hear me? Am I getting out? Is it okay? Okay. Oh, this one? Oh, okay, okay, sorry. Thank you, that's a good question. I have not been asked that before. And considering the answer, I come up with two, so maybe it's both. As a young person, I had a tremendous need or drive to build things and to create things. As a young person, I would go and bring home old television sets that were thrown on the sidewalk in the city. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York City. And I brought them home and I took them apart from my parts, and I built transmitters and amplifiers and oscillators and radios and things like that. And looking back on it, I don't know, there was no rational reason to do this. I just had a need to express myself this way. However, I think when it got to when I was doing the digital camera, my prototype created many more questions than answers, and that's what prototypes do, by the way. If you're presenting a prototype and you know all the answer, it's not a prototype. And so I had a dream, and that's what drove me. My dream was an all solid state form of camera that had no moving parts that would capture images. I even had dreams of it being sold on little bubble packs at the checkout corner of a supermarket. I mean, that was my dream. And you know, you need a dream as an inventor because you don't have enough data, or certainly in the early phases of your work, to support your contention that this is going to be useful. You have just your faith that it's going to happen. And if you read stories about great inventors, you will see that's pretty characteristic. They're sure it's going to work, but they don't know why they're sure. And that is basically faith that it will work. So I think maybe the answer to your question is both.
Thank you. I would like to add to Mr. Stevens just a couple of information. بعض الاختراعات بل كثير من الاختراعات الكل يتساءل ودائما في إحباط، يعني للأسف يعني إحباط لو أنت اختراعك، سوري على الكلمة، في خير كان غيرك سواه، شركات عملاقة سوتها، هذا مو صحيح. أو يقولوا وايد، أنا أسمع المقولة 1% only out of the inventions could be commercialized. This is, I'm against it. Probably it's debatable, but I'm against it from my يعني short period of experience. إن هذه الاختراعات لأن 1% و 5%، الآخر إحصائية طلعت من الوايبو تقول من 3 إلى 7% ممكن could be commercial from 3 to 5% from the وايبو. ليش؟ خلنا نتساءل، ليش هاي الاختراعات ما قاعدة تسوق؟ لأن ما لقت المستثمر والممول لها بحيث أن يهتم فيها ويرعاها. اللي طلعت لقت، فهذا ما هو مقياس أن اختراعك مو زين، ما يعني رأى النور. فهذه معلومة مهمة، أنا حبيت جس الاستطراد يعني بحيث.
السلام عليكم. I have two questions for Mr. Lestيفن.
You may see him.
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay, you're right in the light.
I have two questions for your Mr. Lestيفن. The first question, the best way to save your idea, first make a prototype or file or register the patent first. What is the best way for that? Make a prototype first, and after that file a patent, or the reverse? The second question, how you reserve your rights on all world? You file a patent only in USA. How can you reserve your patent on all world, all cartons?
Okay, the first part of the question has to do with should we build a prototype or just file for a patent? And I think it depends very much on the area that you're working in. I do some consulting, and I find that the world moves very fast today. And so if you have an idea, very often people will try to get that idea into a product, put that product on the market, get their funding through some sort of crowdsourcing like Kickstarter or something like that, get it out there, and then hopefully some company will come along and buy your company, your new company that drove this. That's a dream that a lot of young inventors have. Of course, the danger here is if you don't protect yourself with intellectual property, you are in danger of losing that. So prototypes are not required for invention, but they do help crystallize what your idea is, and prototypes are certainly probably required for any kind of funding that you would get for commercializing your idea. So I think you have to consider both. On the intellectual property side, you don't necessarily have to file a complete patent. As you know, a patent involves a specification, an abstract, and claims. And drafting claims is a very difficult and has to be done very carefully, and that usually takes time, and sometimes inventors who are commercializing new products don't want to take the time. So you file a provisional patent which protects your position for a year. Now I'm talking about US patent law. I'm unfamiliar with other forms of patent law, but I think it's very similar. So my advice would be build prototypes because they're going to be required for any subsequent investment. People like to see what they're investing in. File a patent or a provisional patent that's not very costly, a few $100s for a provisional patent that reserves your position in line for a year, and that gives you enough time to refine your idea, get your investors in line, and carefully write your claims. Because you have to write your claims carefully, because if you ever get involved in patent litigation, and I saw this on more than one occasion, poorly written claims can be result in a very poor result for the inventor. So you have to do the proper work to do that. So I suggest both of those. when it comes to how to protect your rights around the world, what companies usually do, it's very expensive to get complete patent coverage all around the world. Think about the markets that you're going to go into. If you're going to be primarily selling in Europe or the United States, you would certainly file there. If you're going to have a wider distribution than that, pick a couple of the major companies. Because, quite frankly, if you ever wanted to actually assert your patent against an offending party, you have to have a reasonable economic reason for doing so. And if your sales in a particular country are not very big, it probably isn't worth going there. There's a whole bunch of other issues to consider about intellectual property litigation that are probably too much to go into right here. There are cultural, there are legal ramifications of that. But to simplify the answer, take a look at your markets and then figure out which markets are going to be the biggest markets and then file there first. And then as your business grows, of course, you can increase. You will always be adding more to your patents. If you're successful, you'll have follow-on patents as well. So.
السلام عليكم. وسام ممدوح من مصر. أولا كانت الكاميرا الفيلمية العادية. ثانيا أصبحت المستخدم حاليا الكاميرا الرقمية. هل في العالم من يفكر بشيء ثالث حتى الآن أم لا يوجد فكرة لشيء ثالث بعد الكاميرا الرقمية؟ هل سؤالي واضح؟
I'm sure the answer is yes to that question. Everybody thinks about that. I certainly think about it a lot. I'm very impressed with some of the new developments that have taken place in photography. They make use of the technology breakthroughs in the last 25 or 30 years. And so I will tell you, things that are being done today, I had never really thought about back when I was doing my original work. Things like the light field camera, 360-degree cameras, things like that. Certainly there's algorithm work. You see, the problem of taking a picture, I think, has been solved. Does anybody here, and I might even include the young people here, do they have cell phones with cameras? Everybody does? So we don't have a problem getting pictures, do we? But we might have a problem in finding them because we take so many. And you heard the statistics about what happens in just a short period of time on just a few of the social networks with numbers of pictures. So I think that the problem that needs to be solved is content-aware search engines that can go through and find, based on content, not metadata. Metadata is always helpful, but it's not always universally available. For looking at pictures and finding out exactly where pictures are and what's in them by intelligently determining through algorithms that it's a picture of a horse in a field with a mountain behind him. Most likely it is a picture in Colorado. They would determine that. And so you would be able to find those kinds of things. Work is taking place right now in that area. And then, of course, the traditional work's being extended to many different areas, to super megapixel images. You've seen perhaps these images that are taken with incredible resolution, so you can zoom in as much as you want and you still see tremendous detail. But these are more specialized applications. Three-dimensional imaging, holographies, things like that is being worked on as well. And then I think a comment made to me a few weeks ago by a New York Times, the chief photographer at the New York Times, said that people aren't interested in single pictures anymore. In fact, they don't believe single pictures anymore. They want to see a series of pictures. What people want to get now are stories, not pictures, which involve several images. So I think the work will continue on in automatically generating stories from pictures. And you will use, in addition to the picture itself, you will use all the metadata that's available to you based on location and what else is going on in the world to automatically compile a story. And we did some intellectual property work in that area as well. So, but I think there's people much smarter than I am thinking about this right now, and every day you're seeing advances that are very impressive.
Dr. Muhammad.
Well, no? Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Stephen for being with us. My name is Mohammed Salman. I work with KEFAS. And before I give my question, I would like to extend the welcome of our Director General, Dr. Adnan Shahabuddin, who couldn't be with us this evening. And he told me to extend his greeting to you. Thank you. My question could be strange a little bit. Now, the technology, science and technology historians, where do they rank your invention? We know the bulb. It really made change in the humanity and in the history of a human being. And I believe your invention done a lot to us. Has it been ranked among those big inventions who changed the face of the history? And another question. Now we know digital photography is being misused around the world. A lot of crimes being committed because of it. What does that make you feel? When Einstein did his equation, he didn't know that the nuclear bomb will be used to kill a lot of people. The digital technology has really done, there's good and bad in it. How do you feel about it? Thank you. Oh, by the way, just being with you, it is really inspirational to the young people, I think, and for the young oldies like me. And we really thank you to be around.
Well, thank you for that. Let me see if I can address your question. The first part of your question had to do with a ranking. Now, I can't possibly offer a number. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. I think, I think of inventions as dominoes. One domino hits another one and another one and another one, and every invention is just, it's spurred on by one invention. In my case, it was the invention of the charge-coupled device. That was an invention made by Boyle and Smith at Bell Laboratories in 1969. That was the solid-state sensor that allows you to turn a light pattern into a charge pattern and to be able to get that charge pattern off in a normalized sequence so that you could reconstruct the image. That was a great invention. But that's what enabled my work to go forward. All right. And then obviously I leveraged many of the inventions. The invention of the microprocessor, Ted Hoff. I know him, and without the microprocessor, I think I would have had a very hard time doing the image processing I needed to do to reconstruct the images that I showed in 1976. So I don't know how to rank them. I simply know that they feed off of one another. The technical marvels and inventions of today become the everyday tools of tomorrow. And I think that that's very true in all inventions, okay? Not just mine. The second part of your question's a little bit more interesting. Maybe you're asking the question, do I ever regret inventing the digital camera? And there are moments when I see things that people do with this that is, I would have never thought in a million years someone would do. But I think in a more serious way, inventions really provide options for people. That's what inventions do. We can't tell you what to do with the tool, but we give you the capability to have it. And it will never stop because we always want more options. It will never replace the morality that you need in a society. In general, though, I've been very pleased to see how digital cameras have allowed people to communicate better, to inform us about what's going on in other parts of the world. The immediacy of it sometimes scares me because we overreact sometimes, to pictures. But in general, I'm happy. But there have been a few occasions where I've scratched my head and said, why? I was 25 when I started to work on this. Well, actually, I was probably 24. Actually, 24 when I started to work on it. And I took about a year, and I was 25 when I took the first picture. And I want to get to maybe the root of your question. You know, when do you start thinking about inventing? I was thinking about it all the time. My brother once surprised me by giving me something he had kept when something that I had made for him when I was basically 12 years old. We both lived in a small house in Brooklyn, New York, and my brother and I shared the same room. It was a very small room. And my brother, who was a couple of years younger than me, he loved to listen to the baseball games. And he'd listen to them on Saturday afternoon when it's cheap transistor radio, you know. And that always annoyed me. And so what I did was I took a pair of headphones and I took a little transistor radio and I took the battery out and I put the transistor radio on one side, the batteries on the other to balance it all out. And so he could listen to the Yankee game without me hearing it, and he could walk around because that's what he liked to do. And he finally, after receiving all this this notoriety, he brought it to me. He sent it to me one Christmas. He said, "Here's your first invention," and it was when I was 12 years old. So I was always doing that. Another invention was something called a do-nothing box, which was a bunch of lights, and neon lights, and all I did was go in a sequence and circle. And I borrowed an old cigar box and poked holes in it, and I built this circuit, and I really didn't even understand the circuit. I just wired it from what I learned in a magazine, and it went around in a circle, and I gave it to my father. And I must tell you that my father passed away, and then my mother passed away in 2004. When we were cleaning out the house, I found that box. He had kept it. And it was also sort of the first time I ever went into building circuits to do something. This one officially did nothing, but it was my first attempt at doing that. And I was probably around 12 or 13 when I did that there. So I started thinking about this when I was very young. Thanks for your question. My wife is sitting right here, and she knows me better than anybody in the world. And perhaps I should have her come up and answer this question. Yeah, be careful what it is. You know, inventors need support. They're like anybody else. You need somebody to be there to when you're down, when you're confused, when things aren't going right. You know, because they believe in you, not your idea so much. You know, it's not the idea; it's you as a person. And any human being, I think, needs that. And in my case, I have it in tremendous amounts in my wife, Cindy. She always supports me and always is there when I'm pounding the table about something not going right. She says, "It'll go right, don't worry." Go on. And you need that.
محمد بس اسمح لي في مقولة حلوة بس don't quote it from me يعني. وراء كل رجل عظيم امرأة. راح نستعرض أول مرة مثل ما وعدنا أبنائنا وبناتنا وإخواننا المخترعين إن راح يكون هناك نظام مفتوح. راح يكون هناك نظام على الويب سايت أول مرة نعلن عنه بالمركز. هذا النظام أنا أتمنى الأخ زياد لو سمحتي وجاسمين إذا موجود يعني عمل وصمم وبرمج. ترى فخور في الإخوان اللي راح يجون الأخ زياد وجاسمين ورافي موظفين بالمركز. they did it from A to Z in-house. يعني هذا العمل الجبار اللي صار له أشهر. الآن المخترع ما له داعي يجينا المكتب ويسجل وكذا، ولكن كله على الويب سايت. راح تكون هناك بطاقة المخترع، رقمه الخاص فيه، كل ما يحتاجه من خلال هذه السنوات. على فكرة المركز كان قبل إنشاء المركز أسس مكتب رعاية المخترعين بالنادي العلمي قبل 25 سنة. يعني هذه كلها خبرات متراكمة الحمد لله حاولنا بقدر المستطاع نلبيها لأبنائنا وبناتنا يعني بدولة الكويت. راح نشوف بشكل سريع زياد لو سمحت. طبعا الأكسس على www.sacgc.org. هذا الويب سايت مالنا.
إنها لحظة تكريم ضيفنا الكريم السيد ستيفن ساسون مخترع الكاميرا الرقمية الثابتة، فليتفضلوا كل من الدكتور عمر البناي مدير عام مركز صباح الأحمد للموهبة والإبداع، والدكتور كمال ربيح من جائزة سمو الشيخ سالم العلي الصباح، والدكتور محمد السلمان ممثل عن مؤسسة الكويت التقدم العلمي.
Yeah, without start all over again without the headset.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
والآن سيتم السحب على أرقام الحضور من قبل المدير العام والسيد ستيفن ساسون. تفضل.
Digital camera.
Draw a number? Yeah, please.
You know this guy. You know this guy.
What's the number?
الرقم 71.
تروح ذاك الصوب يمه احسن. تكون يمه ذا.
الجائزة شنو؟
42 42
سلمي.
طال الكاميرا طال الكاميرا. يا حلوها طال سهل. مبروك.
81
الله يبارك فيك. الله يسلمك.
حصل صورتك الحين. حصل صورة.
الله يسلمك.
32 32 41
Next. Okay. سلمي عليه. I don't exactly where.
75 75
Thank you so much.